morning, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Morning Briefing. I'm Jeff DeForest, along with Mike Lubie Lubitz, Defo and Lubie here on NoFilter.net. This is a kind of a strange omen, Lubie. I don't know how to interpret this. I'm not sure that it gets us off to a particularly good start here. There may be a dark cloud hovering over this particular broadcast, but I'm on hold. I had to change a doctor's appointment that I had for this morning, and I'm on hold. And while I'm on hold, I'm placed on hold. They're playing music from The Exorcist. I'm waiting for this lady to come back. It's like, and I'm thinking, what's next? I'm going to be spitting up pea soup, as many people were if they were backing the Buffalo Bills last night. Bills laying 7 on a hook. Monday Night Football. The Bills are in contention, deemed by many to be one of the teams to beat. Possible Super Bowl contenders. They fell a little bit short last year. They ran into some of the problems that they had exhibited throughout the regular season, as in that Josh Allen, who was just a couple of years ago considered to be possibly the best quarterback. Yeah, he's better than Mahomes. I'm telling you, he's better than Mahomes.
Yep.
And you're thinking, man, that may be a premature evaluation, which it turned out to be because he's reckless.
Yes.
Which, do you like that in a quarterback? I mean, holy Billy Kilmer, what are we talking about here? He's reckless, Lubie. You have been pointing out the flaws, but part of that is driven and inspired by the fact that you hate the Buffalo Bills because you've been a Dolphin fan your whole life. Despise them for bludgeoning the Dolphins and driving Don Shula right out of football. Don Shula. A lot of weird music coming into this particular broadcast. But yeah, you hated the Bills, and consequently, and you despised Josh Allen, and kept pointing out his flaws, which I kept trying to ignore, except that you could not miss this last night, that this guy is a fucking pick machine.
He's the better Winston.
And he's a likable guy, too. I mean, I fell in love with Josh Allen when he was so humble and expressed all of the sentiments that you would like to see in an evolving superstar athlete. Whenever he was in those post-game press conferences, win or lose, he was an embraceable player. One of those guys that you're saying, yeah, that's the kind of guy, I'd like to introduce to my daughter. Well, especially since he's making about $50 million a year. He doesn't have to be a doctor. But is this now getting to the point of being somewhat inexcusable? And at the same time, if you look at the chaos, the pandemonium that broke out from the Bills sideline, this Sean McDermott, who was considered to be that one tough son of a gun, like the drill sergeant there.
Yep.
We're saying, holy Jack Webb, just give me the facts. This guy was all business.
Yeah.
I don't know that he's ever smiled in his lifetime. I think if he smiled, he would pass gas. Sean McDermott on the sidelines. Seemed to be a really good coach. What are the Bills doing at 5-5, Lubie, after losing last night in pathetic fashion with the chaos that occurred at the end of the game? A penalty flag on a bomb that was going to be incomplete, and then, or should have easily been defended. And then 12 men on the field on a missed field goal that would have decided the contest, and they get to do it again. And bingo for Mike Westhoff, our good friend, now the special teams coach of the Denver Broncos. This guy, Will Lutz, who was not Will Putz throughout most of the game, especially to those of us that were trying to nurse a point spread with the Denver Broncos. Imagine, I am backing the Broncos in this game.
Oh,
plus
wow.
7 and a hook. Now, that seemed to be under control for a long period of time. You were thinking, are the Bills going to bust out of this and find a way to manufacture some points there and run away and hide and win this game by a touchdown or 10 points? Possibly. That was in play. But, wow, I mean, the mistakes are horrendous. So did they take themselves completely out of contention? Do you no longer consider the Buffalo Bills to be a contending team, and is Josh Allen just run-of-the-mill when it comes to quarterbacks? You can't make that many mistakes and be considered among the best in the league.
Well, it feels like it. Like, I mean, they still have pieces there. They have an interesting team, but it's funny. The Josh Allen that existed before, was it 2 years ago?
2 years ago, the guy was great.
When he was great, and then he had worked out a lot of these issues. And then I think in that playoff game, he sort of had issues, and that's how they lost. And then last year, he did it more, where I was like, oh, okay, so did he not get rid of them? And then this year, I think, leading the league in turnovers, to be honest.
The stats keep compiling in a negative fashion. I mean, you're talking about they're running deep into the red at this point, where every graphic comes up. It's like, well, that's the most turnovers by a guy in the league since 2018. He's had more turnovers than the entire Minnesota Vikings team did. even even though they've had their share of issues at quarterback. Yeah, I mean, it really is hard to imagine that this guy could have declined that badly. But 5-5 now for the Buffalo Bills. Sean Payton, who was despised early in the season for his insulting interview that he conducted, where you never see this, where a coach completely flattens another coach. And he said that Nathaniel Hackett had butchered the Denver Broncos organization to the point where it might be like some of my marital status documents have read irreconcilable differences. Irreconcilable. They brought in Sean Payton at a pretty fat price to try and straighten that out. And he gets off to an 0-3 start, including a 70-point shellacking at the hands of the Miami Dolphins.
Yep.
And if that didn't set off alarms, not much else would have. Now, the Dolphins have not measured back up to that standard since that game, although they still have a 6-3 record. The Denver Broncos, on the other hand, have turned things around somewhat and now sit at 4-5. So 4-2 from that dismal point that they were at. And they did eke out this victory last night, miraculously, because of the ridiculously poor run Buffalo Bills sideline and even more grotesque play of Josh Allen as a pick machine in that game. Speaking of officiating, Lubie, and you didn't comment on this, when is a safety not a safety? And it seems to be all the time. Now, there's a theory out there, and we live in South Florida, work out of South Florida, that the Miami Hurricane, the football team, has been getting hosed by the ACC officials based on the fact that they hated them when they walked down in the steak fry there and and lost to Penn State in the Fiesta Bowl. And that goes back to like 1987 or something like that. Everybody despised the Hurricanes, their arrogance, their bombastic nature, their in-your-face style during the 2 decades of dominance. But guess what, Lubie? And most people would realize this, so although a lot of people probably weren't even aware that they were any good at one point, because it's been 2 decades since.
Yes, yeah.
So does that carry over? I mean, this whole idea that there's some kind of officiating bias against the team because people just don't like the program to begin with?
No, Canes fans aren't paying attention to the game. They paid attention to the one call and then forgot that there was the rest of the game, because the rest of the game, they hosed FSU at every chance they got. So, no, that safety was a safety. And then the rest of the game, they said, all right, your turn, FSU. We're going to screw you any chance we can. And they did. And it's what kept it close. And that's fine, because ACC refs suck. And that's why I haven't said anything, because if they suck for both teams, I guess it's fair. I don't know. I'd rather them not suck for either team and call all the right calls. But no, the ACC officials have been bad my whole life. And that continued this Saturday, and I'm sure to continue this weekend.
Who's the head of ACC officials? Vince McMahon?
I don't know. They're horrible. They watch replays that are clear and go, nah, fuck it. It's like baseball umps, where they'll rule the ball one thing, and no matter what the replay shows, they don't care. They don't want their guy to look bad. ACC officials, literally, I don't know if they've overturned a call on replay the entire friggin' year.
Guy's 4 yards deep in the end zone. He's run back there of his own volition. Nobody makes contact with him until he's still 3 yards behind the goal line. And some officials saw the ball outside the goal line at some point. When it was snapped?
The official rule is if first contact is made outside of the end zone, which it was, then that's for progress stop. But like you're saying, and many people have said, but he was going backwards. So even if he didn't touch him, he was going to keep going backwards. He wasn't driven backwards because of the defender.
Oh, he was trying to pull a move there.
I won't fight on. It was a safety. I expected it to be called a safety. I thought it was a safety. And like a lot of calls in that game, the refs botched it. They'll do it this week too.
Yeah, I mean, with the money that's riding on these games now, I mean, can you really afford to have no accountability from the officiating crew? And then the replay crew. I mean, you could have dissected this thing like the Zapruder film and never found a point where you would have considered any other call but to give it the old safety.
Yeah, it was safety.
Those officials can't work again. I know you would eventually run out of people. It's like politicians. Are there no competent people that could do this job and do it at a level where you feel like even if there was the occasional mistake made and it wasn't overturned or corrected by watching instant replays. You could live with it because, as you see sometimes with baseball umpires, the good ones, the majority of time, even on split-second plays, they're right. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Pretty incredible. But football officiating right now has to come into serious question. And I know it's been under scrutiny forever. It seems like you say this every year, Louie. We say this every year. Is this the worst fucking officiating we've ever seen in the history of the National Football League or on the college level? And I think the answer to that is an unqualified yes. All right. That's going to, boy, we've been ranting on this morning briefing here. I'm on hold with the doctor. They're playing the Exorcist music. I mean, what kind of a start to the day is that? What are they trying to tell you? Holy Linda Blair. All right, for Mike Lubie Lubitz, thanks for tuning in, everybody. That's today's edition of the Morning Briefing. I'm Jeff DeForest, and we'll see you next time on NoFilter.net.